Okay, let's go ahead and get jamming. First thing I'm going to do is I forgot to show you an example of an animation, and this is why I want you to do an animation for your final projects, your final SolidWorks projects. This is an animation from a senior project last year, a very, very good senior project last year, and just watching this animation really demonstrates how this thing works. I could explain it over and over again and use hundreds of words, and I can't do as good a job as this animation can at what this senior project does. So it's a 2-axis gimbal system with a camera and a laser ranger, and the gimbal's actuated by 2 servo motors, one down here and one up here. And that is why I want you guys to learn how to do animations and to do one, because you won't be required or expected to do an animation for your senior project, but you should. You should want to do that. Alright, VLC's not crashing. It's been crashing all day. Just wanted to check that out. Alright, let's see. Excellent. Thank you. All right, let's go back to yesterday. I want to review yesterday, so go ahead and follow along. I want you guys to go ahead and open up a new part and sketch a rectangle of any length, width, height, and put a hole in it, extrude cut a hole in it anywhere in the rectangle. So take a few moments and do that. We all about there? So there was this issue of relations and adaptive parts. So we're going to go ahead and finish that up quickly. If we wanted to center this, we could do it a couple of ways. We could dimension from this edge to the center and this edge to the center, but those rules are hard and fast rules. So if you change the length or the width of this rectangle, that center of that circle would stay that exact same dimension from that edge and from that edge rather than staying centered. You may want that, but you may not want that. You may want to keep that adaptive, and your design intent may have been to keep the circle centered. So to do that, what we can do is we can go back into that sketch and edit it. And then we'll add points. So up in these sketch tools, we'll grab a point and we'll snap a point to the midpoint. Thank you. And then we'll snap another point to this midpoint. Thank you, I accept that. And then we can go to this add relations. Very important feature here, this display and add relations. And I was still selected with 0.6. You see 0.6 here? I was still selected with that. So it put 0.6 in there. I've also kind of twisted my model around, so I'm not really sure if I select my center, I'm not sure what horizontal and what vertical is. So I'm going to go back and hit my normal to. Now I know what horizontal and vertical is. So these two particular points, I would want them to be horizontal. All right, so I hit those. Now my circle is horizontal. Thank you, I accept that. And then I can add the relation of vertical. Now you see those 2 points are still selected. Be careful. They're highlighted here and they're in the selection pane. You need to get rid of them because you need to reselect. So you can click each one and get rid of it that way, or you can right click and clear selections and then go ahead and select those 2 points again and make them vertical. Accept that. Exit your sketch. It will rebuild the extrude cut, and there it is in the center. And then to prove it, if I went back to my original extrude on my rectangle, which is this sketch, and I go to my dimensions, ooh, I was a bad boy and didn't dimension them. So let's just I'm going to dimension them and say, okay, yeah, I agree with the dimensions that were already there. Here's the IT Service Center saying they fixed it. Hello, this is Matt. Yeah, you fixed it. We tried it. Thank you. Thank you. Yep, bye. Okay, so I'm going to go back in there. That's going to be funny on the lecture if anybody watches that. All right, I'm going to go back in there, and I'm going to make this 2 inches something silly like 10 inches. And our hole is still centered. Okay, so it's this is the power of the relations in sketches. You can use them to manipulate and force your features around the way you want them, even though they're not hard dimensioned. So just wanted to show you that again. Okay. All right, let's demonstrate some more sketch type stuff. I'm gonna make sure VLC is still running. Still running. Okay. I want you to sketch open up a new part. Sketch me a circle. I don't care what diameter or where it is. And then I want you to sketch me a piece of pie in that circle using lines. So if you go to your line sketch tool, I want you to hover over the center and click it. Notice it snaps to the center. And I want you to go out and snap to the circle. So that's going to be a radius. Notice how as I pull away, another line starts forming. It still thinks I'm in the line tool. So in order to make a different line, you have to hit escape and then add another line. Make a pie piece anywhere in there. Now, since those things snapped to the center of the circle and the outer part of the circle, what do you think SolidWorks did? Did it do something behind the scenes? What did it do? Not collinear. You're close though. Coincident. And it made 3 of those coincidents. So if you go to your display delete relations, you can look at the first one. Coincident 0 is this little blue thing. See how it's a little blue thing? That's coincident with the center. You click coincident 1, you can see this little purple guy. It's coincident with the circle. And it tells you down here. So when I'm on coincident 1, it says, okay, what does coincident 1 mean? It means arc 1 and point 4 are coincident with each other. Okay? And then you could see the other one too. Coincident 2, it shows you a graphical representation down here, and it says, hey, arc 1 and point 5. They're coincident. We're still underdefined in this sketch because we're all blue. So we can drag this thing around. So we could grab the circle and we could drag it, make it bigger, smaller. Okay. We could grab a line and drag it. See this radius? I can drag him all the way around. How come I can't pull him? Why can't I pull him? What if I wanted to pull this line out of the circle? You'd have to get rid of the coincident. Okay. All right, let's start putting in some rules. So let's put in a smart dimension rule and set the angle on this pie piece. So click the 2 lines, set the angle at something. I don't care. I'm going to go 75, whatever. That's going to be the same piece of pie no matter what we do, right? So we got 75 degrees. If I start, can I still drag the circle? And make it bigger, smaller. Okay. And I can drag the pie piece, but now both of them move. Right? Our coincidents are still in force. Our angle is now in force. All right, let's try and dimension the circle itself. Just make it something, doesn't matter. I'm going to make it 5 inches, whatever. The circle went black. That means fully defined. Which means I can't drag it. So if I try and drag the circle, no bueno. But the pie piece is still blue, so I can drag him. And I can make him go crazy in the circle. Okay? Now to fully define this, I could do a bunch of different things. Let's try a relation. So I'm going to add a relation, and I'm going to select this line and just make him horizontal. Now I'm fully defined. Can't move. Because little horizontal guy here can't do anything else but be horizontal. Okay, so again, this is a very powerful tool. It's found within your sketches. It's your display, delete, and add relations. Later on, when you start making parts and assemblies, you're going to have some conflicts. You're going to have over-defined items. And almost always it goes back to either a dimension, over-dimensioning something, or over-relating something. So look at your dimensions and look at your relations, try and diagnose the problem. If we want to try and diagnose that problem, we could do it. Let's try and over-define this thing. So let's try and add a relation. If I was to make this guy vertical, could it happen? If I made this radius vertical, is that physically possible? You can't have this guy be horizontal and this guy be 75 degrees and this guy be vertical. If we made our 75 degrees 90, we could do that. So let's try and do that. Say, hey, be vertical. Whoa! So you see down here it says the sketch is over-defined. Click here to resolve the conflict. It's giving us the real bad deal. This vertical is basically doing it. But it's giving us a secondary option. That angle is also causing the problem. If we could make the angle 90, it would fix it. So the other way to do that is to click this guy and say, SolidWorks, help me, I can't figure it out. You can hit diagnose. Gives us 3 options. First option is get rid of vertical 1, get rid of the angle, or get rid of the horizontal. And then you can pick which one you want. So I'll get rid of 1 and say accept. Now the sketch is valid and we got rid of that vertical. So that's a good diagnostic tool to help you out. VLC's still happy. Alright. I want to talk to you about some other sketch tools. So let's talk to you about sketch tools. Just for fun, I'm going to go into the relations and I'm going to delete all of them. Just to make this an underdefined little Pac-Man pie piece here again. Let's draw in another line. This time we'll start at the center and I want to overdo it. Let's say I overdid it last night imbibing and I just couldn't catch the edge of that circle. So the head is a little fuzzy. Alright, so there it is. What if I wanted to trim that back to the circle? So you go back to this trim tool and you can click that, or you can drop the drop down. You can also see there's an extend option. So sometimes you might want to extend. Let's click to trim and you can see there's multiple options. The default one here is selected, trim to closest. The reason that defaulted that way is because SolidWorks kind of analyzed your drawing and said, I think he wants to trim this back to the closest circle because it makes the most sense for the drawing here. I don't know how these coders came up with this stuff, but they did. It's cool. There's other trim options. You can see trim away the inside, trim away the outside. Power trim is kind of a SolidWorks tries to guess what you want by hovering over things. But let's go ahead and use trim to closest. And you can see it kind of helps you. It says select an entity to trim to the nearest intersecting entity. So based on that description, you wouldn't want to click this, right? And you can see how it highlights it. And it looks like that's what it's going to cut. I want to cut this one because I want the part that's outside of the circle. So I click that and it's gone. That's a useful tool. You'll find that useful. A lot of times you want to do something quick. So you'll just sketch, 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 and then you can go back in and trim, trim, trim instead of using the SolidWorks snaps. It also helps if you're trimming and not using the snaps. It doesn't add in all those crazy inherent relations that you may not have wanted, right? So if you sketch without the snaps, none of those relations show up. So maybe you want to do that. Who knows? Maybe you don't. Maybe you want the snaps and you want the relations. That's all inside your head. One tool that's not listed in this toolbar, and you probably could put it in there. You could add it as a button. That's very useful when we're going to get into SolidCam, which is Tuesday of next week, I believe. So make sure you guys get your SolidCam license. Is splitting entities up. So if you hover over the circle, notice it's the whole circle. What if I wanted to cut this circle into the little mouth part of the Pac-Man and the Pac-Man? What if I wanted to do that? That's called split entities. There's a couple of ways to get there. So the first way to get there is to hover over the circle and right click. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you an adaptive menu of options, sketch tool options that are available for that circle. And if you go down and look, there's this one called split entities. And that one is not up here in this toolbar. Okay? So it's there. That's what we're going to use. We're going to use split entities. Now another way to do it is to go to Tools, Sketch Tools, and if you do this, it doesn't know you're on the circle, so it doesn't make an adaptive menu of options only for that circle. It gives you every option under the sun. So here's where you can see what all the different types of sketch tools you have. And split entities is there. Oh, excuse me. All right, so I'm going to go back if my monitor will let me. Yes, sir.
For the split entities thing, you just select everything that you want to be in a different.
Yeah, well, I'm going to show you that. It's kind of goof. Come on, display. There we go. It's kind of goof. Let's try it. Watch this. So what I wanted was, I wanted to split the circle up into the little mouth of the Pac-Man, this arc, and the big Pac-Man, this arc. But it doesn't let me, because ideally I'd like to hover over this point, but look what it does. It grabs the line. So it thinks I want to split the line up, the radius. I don't want to do that. I want to split the circle up. So make sure you hover on the circle and click once, and it put a point coincident with the circle. All right, and then let's go pick another point, maybe out here. Okay, look at what it did. Now hover over that. It split it into that arc length and that arc length, but they're not where I want them. Okay, let's go ahead and close out of split entities. It also did something else. It made coincidence, okay, relations, because of those points it put on there. So what I can do with those points is I can, since it's underdefined, the point is blue and the little arc length is blue, that means I can drag it around. So I'm going to drag that point to my little Pac-Man mouth, and I'm going to drag this point to my little Pac-Man mouth. And then you can see I can hover over this and I can hover over that. Doesn't seem incredibly useful to you right now, but it will become useful, because there are times in SolidCam when you're actually machining something that you don't want to machine the whole circle. You just want to machine a part of the circle. Or you don't want to machine a whole line. You just want to machine a part of a line. That can happen quite frequently. So you need to be able to do that in SolidWorks, because SolidCam is embedded in SolidWorks. Okay? Did you have any other questions there? Look at this goofy thing. So I figured out it's not VLC, it's the projector. My graphics card has, or my processor has a hard time projecting to both screens without freaking out. Okay. Alright, I did not, I messed up and didn't talk to the other group about this, so I'll make sure I talk to you about it. VLC still happy. I want to talk about file associativity. So, oops, I don't want to open SolidWorks again. When you go to start making assemblies out of parts, like that high-soar rocket assembly, those assemblies reference all of the parts that go into building that assembly. If you change the name of that part, it will work on your current computer. Okay? But if you then open up that assembly, it will know that you changed the name of that part, and then it'll open up that assembly with that part. If you copy that part and take it home to another computer, and then you change that name and you make changes to that part, and you bring it back and drop it into that directory, it doesn't know that you changed that name. Okay? It knows if you do all the work on the same computer. Even if you move it out of that directory, it knows that you did the move, and it knows that you renamed it. But if you do work elsewhere without SolidWorks open, it doesn't track all those movements, and it'll cause a rebuild error, or it will open the old part. Okay? So this is important both for you, because you're going to be working in teams with people. You need to have a common place to put all these parts, and you have to have a common naming convention when you name all these parts, so that everybody's on the same page, so you don't get rebuild errors when you try and open up your common assembly. The other thing is, it's real common for you guys to do some work, save it to a flash drive, take the flash drive and move, right? Go home, throw that in a laptop. Go home, throw it on a tower. Go to your buddy's house, throw that on a different laptop. You start making changes in all those places, you need to make sure that the file names and the file locations are understood by SolidWorks itself. Otherwise, it'll crap out. It'll freak out. Yeah.
Random question that kind of relates. Do you know if Dropbox supports SolidWorks files?
Mm-hmm.
It does?
It does. Pretty much all of those Dropbox type utilities support those files. One really irritating one is Google Drive. That's what we've been using to develop this course. And so we can put our files in there. So they're all SolidWorks files. And you can see they're solid assembly, solid part. If you try and download it one file at a time, it'll download as that file type. If you try and download multiple files, it zips them, and then it just throws on a .doc just because it feels like it. Now you can go in there and you can erase the .doc, and then the file will be correct. But what if you downloaded 50 of them? You know. So we're actually considering going and talking to Google about it because it's a bug, and Google's pretty good about fixing bugs. But Dropbox is good. Our students use it all the time. Okay. Let's see. What's next? Everybody understands the 2 homeworks, just to refresh. So we've got, or 3 homeworks, 4. So you've got a belt sander and pedestal grinder video to watch tonight. You've got a drawing of a Lego. I need you to make the part file and upload it to D2L. And then I need you to turn in the hard copy with your name on it and the dimension that should be there so that you can complete that part file and isn't there. There's something missing that won't let you finish that part file. So in that case, you get to make that dimension up. Okay. Yes, in the back. Sorry, I need to start learning your name. Jack.
You answered my question.
Okay. Yeah, so you need to make it up. And the whole purpose of this exercise was students every year bring drawings to me, if they bring me drawings. So I'm hoping you guys will bring me drawings. They bring me drawings every year that have missing dimensions, and I say, what's this? And they go, oh. You know, so it's really important that you have every drawing or every dimension that's necessary for the part on there. Otherwise, a machinist can't build it, and a mechanical engineer or a systems engineer can't check it, because they don't know what you mean. Okay. So that's that. Then you have your final project declaration, which is a Word document that you'll upload. And that is due Friday. So we have all that. And then there's one more, and that is I want you to run through the parts tutorial, but we're gonna start that now, and we may even finish it in class. The reason I want to do that is because it does the shell feature, and when you build your Lego, which is right here, my Lego I built here, I built without a shell feature. I want you to use the shell feature on your part. Now, how did I do it without the shell? Could anybody figure out how I could cut this out without the shell feature?
You did an extruded cut, but you didn't do a through cut.
Right, an extruded cut with the rectangle, but I didn't go all the way through. And then I must have built these off that cavity, right? And you can see all that in the history. So you can see I extruded the rectangle. I extruded, see how the sketch kind of highlights in the orange? I made a linear pattern on the sketch of these 8 guys and then extruded them. Then I extruded that. Looks like I extruded those, and then I built bosses off there. I don't want you to do that. I want you to do it differently. I want you to use the shell feature, okay, which will be explained in this next tutorial. And you can find that in your SolidWorks Resources toolbar off on the right, or if it was in the Tools menu, and then Resources, Tutorials, Getting Started tab, Lesson 1 Parts. Okay? I want you to start doing that, and I'm going to interrupt you every couple of minutes here and show you some neat features that I haven't showed you yet. Not crazy features, but just some kind of clever little features. And in order to do that, I'd like you to start. This tutorial is going to be in metric units, but I want you to open apart and force your options to English units. And then continue with the tutorial. And then I'm going to interrupt you as you go. But go ahead and start that.